Is Joe Biden the weakest president in history? He certainly is the weakest in my lifetime. It looks like his administration's number one tactic is to beg for what they want. It turns out that Biden's not the commander-in-chief, he's the beggar-in-chief. It's particularly true in three areas that affect all of us as Americans, areas where the executive branch was given or has taken a lot of power: foreign policy, immigration, and energy production. On the foreign policy front, we're now begging the Taliban to let Americans leave Afghanistan. On immigration, we're begging Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras to strictly enforce their borders. And on energy production, we're now begging OPEC to produce more oil. Let's start with Afghanistan. The Biden administration has made the biggest foreign policy blunder in at least a half a century. His first mistake was that he unconditionally pulled our troops out of the country. According to Yahoo News, we turned the lights off at Bagram Airfield and left without even letting our Afghani counterparts know about it. The U.S. left Afghanistan's Bagram Airfield after nearly 20 years by shutting off the electricity and slipping away in the night without notifying the base's new Afghan commander, who discovered the Americans' departure more than 2 hours after they left, Afghan military officials said. That's pretty unbelievable. And if it's true that we shut off the electricity before we left unannounced, then there is no way that this administration thought the Afghan army could fend off the Taliban for a few months. We didn't even take our helicopters or armored vehicles with us. We just snuck out in the middle of the night, leaving all of our belongings behind like we were leaving an abusive husband or something. And we pulled our troops out without a plan to get tens of thousands of Americans and allies safely out of the country. That's like leaving your belongings and your kids behind. And now we're begging the Taliban, and probably bribing them, to allow Americans safe passage to the airport in Kabul, and to allow us to stay past August 31st if all Americans haven't been able to get out by then. Their answer is no, by the way. They've actually said that if we stay past the deadline, there will be consequences. They're warning us of repercussions. That's how badly we botched this. We've armed a terrorist regime, we've given up a strategic location in the fight against their terroristic agenda, and we've legitimized them as a governing body. After 20 years, we left them with more power and legitimacy than they had before 9/11. I hope we learned something from this, but I doubt it. After the Twin Towers fell and the Taliban wouldn't turn over bin Laden, we should have bombed the crap out of them to destroy the Taliban leadership and anywhere we thought bin Laden was and been done with it. That would have been a much better deterrent than what happened. I don't think very many future American presidents will have the courage to do something like that, though. Definitely not a Democrat president. If this administration is the new standard, we're just going to beg our enemies for what we want. You know, like we're doing with OPEC right now. OPEC stands for the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. It's made up of 13 countries, including Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. During the Trump administration, we had become energy independent for the first time in more than 70 years. And now, just 6 months into the Biden presidency, we're begging our enemies to produce more oil. Biden also revoked the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline from Canada. So instead of getting more oil from our friends up north, we're begging our enemies like Iran and Venezuela to sell us more. And not just that. The Biden administration waived sanctions we had in place so that Russia could construct an oil pipeline into Germany. So he hurt our allies, raised our gas prices, and helped Russia gain a little more power and wealth. And last but not least, the Biden administration is begging countries like Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico to better secure their borders to try to slow the tide of illegal immigrants arriving at our border. Now, I don't know how genuine they really are in wanting to decrease the number of future Democrat voters arriving at our southern border, but that's what they say they want. They could have just kept the policies of the previous administration in place, and there wouldn't be a crisis at the border right now. But then again, that wouldn't help build a future Democrat voter base. The sad fact is, we have a beggar-in-chief that's occupying the White House. It's so bad that Biden's probably wearing knee pads these days. How did we get to a place where we're begging the Taliban to allow us to do something? It's bad enough that we left our fellow Americans behind enemy lines, but now we're pleading with terrorists to be nice to them instead of us going in to rescue them? It's embarrassing. Just check out what the Defense Secretary said the other day.
But that doesn't answer the question. I mean, you're still saying you're focused on the airfield. These people can't get into the airfield.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to continue to try to deconflict and create passageways for them to get to the airfield.
But
I
that's
don't
not-
have the capability to go out and extend operations currently into Kabul.
That was Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, saying that we don't have the capability to rescue Americans outside the airport in Kabul. Well, Mr. Austin, with all due respect, we had that capability before you guys decided to just leave everyone and everything behind. The way we left Afghanistan reminds me of the episode of Seinfeld where George pushes Granny out of the way trying to escape from a fire. We did the opposite of women and children first. And now we're begging the terrorists that we have been at war with for 20 years to have mercy on us. They gave us an ultimatum. Either we leave by the end of the month or face the consequences. To use another Seinfeld reference, it's like we've entered Bizarro world. I'm afraid that we no longer have a commander-in-chief. We now have a beggar-in-chief. And that's the simple truth. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you all would like to support this channel, check out the links in the description and let's keep putting some common sense back into the great debate.